Hey guys, welcome back. Today I've got another quick white armour Necron painting tutorial video for you. I do have some larger projects lined up for the near future, including a Tyranid High Fleet Typhon Hierophant. But in the meantime, while I'm preparing for that video, I'll be doing a couple of smaller tutorial videos, like this one for Imotekh The Stromlord. I'm going to be painting him up very similarly to my Campotep the Crooked video I did a few months back, but with a few small minor differences. So let's get into it. Firstly, I'm going to prime the model white, and then from there I'm just going to go in with some black, and I'm going to paint in all of the exoskeleton underneath the armour panels, his high-tech futuristic loincloth, and also the handle of his weapon. And any misplaced brush strokes that get onto the white areas of the model can easily be painted over with some white paint. Next up, I'm going to be using Army Painter Terrestrial Titan, and I'm going to be using this to paint in all of the areas that are eventually going to be magenta. And that includes the cloak and the blades of the weapon, and also a few of the orbs on the model as well. And to get a nice smooth coverage over all of the kind of nooks and crannies in the cape, I had to apply 2 thin coats of the Terrestrial Titan, with the first coat being a watered down mix which would flow into all of the recesses in the cloak. Next, I'm going to be using Mage Magenta and Enchanted Pink from the Magenta Triad from Army Painter to highlight up all of the terrestrial purple areas that I painted up in the previous step. I'm going to be applying this using an airbrush, firstly with the Mage Magenta, and for the cloak I'm going to be highlighting up the large folds which are at the centre and at the top of the cape, and I'm also going to be applying this to the tip as well. I then did the same with the blades of the weapons, hitting all of the top facing surfaces and pointed areas that would be catching the light. And all of these steps that I'm doing with the airbrush could also be done with layering or glazing. I'm just trying to practice and improve with my airbrush control. And then after that I just go in with the Enchanted Pink and apply that over the Mage Magenta, ensuring that I cover a smaller surface area, still leaving the previous colour still visible. And after that's been applied, I'll just go back in with some black or white paint and paint in any of the overspray that got onto any of the black or white parts of the model. Next up, I'm going to be using Army Painter Deep Grey to apply an edge highlight to all of the black areas. And this just needs to be a rough edge highlight. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to make sure you hit every black edge, which is going to help those areas and give them a little bit of depth. And after that, I attached the cloak to the model in preparation for the next part, which is the shading process. And to do that, I'm going to be using the Mr. Weathering Multi-Black pigment. And I'm going to be applying this to all of the black and white areas on the model, leaving all of the magenta areas untouched. And if you don't have the Mr. Weathering Multi-Black pigment, you can just use your own black oil wash and thin it down a little bit with some white spirits, and it'll do exactly the same thing. And in my previous video for the Imotekh The Crooked model, I used Army Painter Dark Tone, which gives a similar type result, which is not quite as good as using the oil paints or oil washes. But if it's all you have, you could use Army Painter Strong Tone or Null and Oil as well. And in fact, using either of these two would be a much quicker process. But I wanted to try out the Mr. Weathering Multi-Black pigment for painting up white armour, just so I could see if it produced a better result than the strong tone that I used in the previous model. And once I'd applied a coat of the pigment to all of the black and white areas, it was now time to go in and start the removal process. And to do this, I just switched to a smaller and clean brush and started to wick up any of the excess oil pigment. And I also dampened my brush in a little bit of odourless white spirits. And this just helps remove any of the excess pigment from all of the raised areas. And you just need to take your time and go around the model section by section, wicking up all the excess pigment and using the white spirits to wipe away any of the black wash from all of the flat and upward facing surfaces. And all in all, it took around 20 to 30 minutes to apply the pigment and then remove all of the excess, which definitely does give a nicer result than using something like Null and Oil or Strong Tone. But if I was batch painting this for multiple models across an entire army, I would more than likely lean towards using the Null and Oil, just purely for the speed aspect of it. But for this single model, spending 20 to 30 minutes wasn't really a big deal. And finally, I'm going to go back in with the same magenta colours I used previously, which is the Mage Magenta and Enchanted Pink. And I'm going to paint in all of the details that were too small for the airbrush. And that includes all of the kind of little gemstones on the loincloth, the shoulder pads, and the gloves as well. And for these small areas, I'm just base coating in the Mage Magenta, and then applying a small spot highlight with the Enchanted Pink. And once that's done, the model is finished and ready to be based. All in all, really happy with the way the model turned out, especially the magenta parts. I definitely prefer the magenta to the pink I used in my previous Necron model. But I'm still 50-50 on whether or not using the oil washes over the acrylic washes is worth the time investment. It definitely gives more depth to the model, and I may or may not use it in my future White Armour Necron videos. I do want to try the technique where you let the oil wash set a little bit, and then go in with a wedge-tipped makeup brush and wipe away all of the excess pigment. It gives a slightly different effect to the technique that I used in this video, so I may try that on my next Necron model to see how it compares. And if you do have any questions on any of the techniques or paints used in this video, then just let me know in the comments down below. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, happy painting, and I'll see you in the next one.